In the harsh, unforgiving landscape of the Old West, where mistrust and vengeance ruled the hearts of many, a single act of compassion could mean the difference between life and death, or even legend. Imagine being branded a fool by your own people for extending a hand to an enemy so broken and near death that few would dare to look at her twice. But sometimes, the most unexpected choices ripple through time, rewriting destinies and challenging the very codes of honor that shaped entire tribes. This is not just a story of bravery. It's a story of how kindness shattered centuries of hatred and forged a bond that no one could have foreseen. They called him reckless, a man blinded by misplaced loyalty. Yet it was this same man whose courage to defy the bitter divisions of war would ultimately lead him to a place no one ever imagined, the honored chief of the very tribe he was once taught to despise. How could a single act of mercy transform an outsider into a leader? What was it about this dying enemy that captured the hearts of those who had sworn to destroy her? The answers lie buried deep in the dusty trails and campfires of the frontier, where loyalty was tested in the most extraordinary ways. In a world where survival meant choosing sides and trusting no one, his decision to help a wounded woman from the opposing tribe was not only dangerous, it was revolutionary. Against all odds, this man looked beyond the scars of war and saw a person worthy of compassion, an enemy deserving of care. And what followed would challenge everything his people believed about loyalty, honor, and family. This is the tale of a fool, or perhaps the greatest hero of the Old West, whose legacy defied hatred and changed the course of history. As you listen to this incredible journey, prepare to walk the thin line between prejudice and humanity, to feel the weight of choices that could have cost him everything, and to witness how a single act of mercy can dismantle walls built by decades of fear. This is more than a story. It's a lesson carved in the rugged spirit of the West, reminding us that sometimes true strength is found not in weapons, but in the courage to forgive. Stay with us as we unravel the extraordinary events that led a man, once ridiculed for his compassion, to become a beacon of hope and unity in a world torn apart by conflict. This is a story you won't want to miss, because it speaks to something deeper than history. It touches the heart of what it means to be truly human. The sun was setting over the rugged hills when he found her, barely breathing, blood staining the dry earth beneath her. The enemy scout, from a tribe long considered a fierce rival, lay wounded and forgotten. To many, she was nothing more than a target, a symbol of hatred passed down through generations. But for this man, a lone wanderer who had grown weary of endless conflict, the sight stirred something unexpected, a flicker of compassion that refused to be ignored. What would it cost him to help a dying foe in a land ruled by suspicion and violence? Little did he know that this moment would change everything. His hands trembled as he lifted her fragile body, aware that this act of mercy would mark him as an outcast among his own people. Whispers of betrayal had already begun to spread. Yet, he pressed on, tending to wounds with what little supplies he carried, sheltering her beneath a makeshift canopy of branches. The nights were cold and unforgiving, but he stayed by her side, sharing stories of survival and hope, not as enemies, but as human souls clinging to life. This delicate balance between life and death forged a connection that neither had anticipated. As days passed, the scout's strength slowly returned, and with it, a mutual understanding began to grow. She spoke of her tribe's struggles, their deep connection to the land, and the pain of watching families torn apart by war. In return, he revealed his own disillusionment with endless bloodshed, yearning for a future where enemies might become allies. Their conversations were laced with cautious trust, a fragile bridge across a divide built by generations of conflict. This was no longer a simple story of survival. It was the birth of an extraordinary alliance. Word of his compassion spread like wildfire, igniting outrage among his comrades. They called him a fool, a traitor who had betrayed the very code of the West. To help a dying enemy was unthinkable, a weakness that endangered them all. But he stood firm, refusing to abandon the woman who had become more than a rival. In the shadows of the frontier, courage wasn't always measured by a gun. Sometimes, it was found in the willingness to protect even those deemed unworthy. His resolve challenged the brutal laws of loyalty etched deep into every cowboy's heart. But the true test was yet to come. The rival tribe, wary and guarded, received news of his actions with disbelief. Could this man, a stranger and former enemy, truly be trusted? And what would they say when they learned that not only had he saved one of their own, but that the woman he saved had begun to speak of him with respect and gratitude? The winds of change were blowing through the dusty plains, threatening to sweep away old hatreds and rewrite the story of two warring peoples. The morning sun revealed a gathering of warriors at the edge of the camp, figures silhouetted against the horizon, their faces unreadable but their intent clear. They had come not with weapons drawn, but with cautious curiosity. The woman he had saved stood among them, her eyes shining with a mix of defiance and hope. She spoke of the man who defied tradition, who risked everything to keep her alive when others would have let her die. Her words echoed through the silent crowd, planting seeds of doubt and possibility where once only resentment had flourished. The tribe's elders, guardians of ancient customs and fierce protectors of their people, were the hardest to convince. They questioned his motives, wary of deception and betrayal. How could someone from the opposing side be worthy of trust, much less honor? Yet, as the woman's testimony unfolded, tales of kindness, bravery, and an unbreakable spirit, the elders found themselves confronted with a truth they could not ignore. This man's actions spoke louder than any oath or battle cry. They spoke of a rare kind of strength born from empathy, not violence. Stories of his deeds traveled fast, weaving through campfires and distant settlements alike. Some scoffed, dismissing the tale as foolishness. Others listened, hearts stirring with the possibility that even in the harshest lands, compassion could thrive. The frontier was a place where survival often meant hard choices, but this story challenged the very notion of who deserved mercy. It questioned the limits of loyalty and opened a door to unity that had been locked for decades. This was a turning point, a moment when the old ways clashed with the new. Meanwhile, back among his own people, the man faced increasing isolation. Friends turned to strangers, and whispers of betrayal grew louder. Yet, he bore it all with quiet dignity, knowing that true courage often meant walking alone. He understood that the path he had chosen was perilous, but his heart was steady. Sometimes, the greatest battles were not fought with guns or fists, but with the willingness to stand firm against the tide of hatred and fear. His actions became a beacon for those tired of war, a symbol of hope in a world consumed by darkness. The woman, now recovering fully, chose to stay close to him, their bond forged in adversity. Together, they navigated the fragile peace between two worlds, learning to trust where others would suspect. Their story was no longer just about a dying enemy saved. It was about two souls daring to defy the impossible and bridge a divide built on blood and sorrow. In the vast wilderness of the West, where legends were born from acts of bravery and heart, their tale was destined to become one of the most unforgettable. As days turned into weeks, the fragile trust between the man and the tribe deepened, surprising even the most skeptical warriors. The woman's tribe began to see him not as an outsider, but as someone who had broken the cycle of hatred with his actions. Small gestures of acceptance emerged, shared meals, guarded conversations, and moments of quiet respect around campfires. The Old West was a place hardened by violence, yet here was a glimmer of something rare, the possibility of true reconciliation. It was as if the dusty winds themselves carried a new promise, whispering that even the deepest wounds could heal. But acceptance was not without its shadows. Rumors reached the man's old allies, and their anger was fierce. They accused him of betrayal, of forgetting the blood spilled in past battles. Letters were sent, threats whispered, and enemies lurked in the shadows, waiting to exploit any sign of weakness. The man knew that his path was dangerous. His compassion made him vulnerable in a world where strength was measured by survival and dominance. Yet, his resolve remained unshaken, anchored by the knowledge that what he had started was bigger than any personal risk. One evening, under a sky blanketed with stars, the woman shared stories of her people's ancient customs, rites of passage, ceremonies that bound the tribe together in loyalty and honor. She explained how leadership was earned not just through battle, but through wisdom, courage, and the ability to unite. The man listened, realizing that the tribe's values, though unfamiliar, resonated deeply with his own quiet sense of justice. This newfound understanding bridged not only their hearts, but the divide between two cultures once locked in endless conflict. The tribe's elders, witnessing the genuine bond forming, began to reconsider their stance. If this man could walk among them with humility and strength, perhaps he could lead them into a new era. The possibility seemed unthinkable. A man from outside their world, once their enemy, becoming their chief. Yet, sometimes history bends under the weight of extraordinary moments. The man's actions had sown seeds of change, and the tribe found themselves standing at the threshold of a future none dared imagine. At the same time, the man's own people grappled with confusion and betrayal. To many, he was lost to the enemy's influence, a fool blinded by compassion. But among a few, whispers of admiration began to spread, tales of a man brave enough to challenge the harsh codes of the West for the sake of peace. In a land where legends were born from gunsmoke and grit, this story stood apart, a testament to the power of mercy in the face of hatred. The stage was set for a transformation that would echo through the ages. The decisive moment arrived during a council gathering, where the tribe's future hung in the balance. The elders convened under the vast sky, their faces etched with years of wisdom and the weight of tradition. The man stood before them, no longer a stranger, but a symbol of change. His journey from outcast to ally had been marked by trials few could endure, yet his spirit remained unbroken. He spoke not with arrogance, but with a humble voice that carried the strength of one who had seen both sides of a brutal conflict and chosen a path of unity. The woman, now fully healed and standing proudly beside him, shared her unwavering support. Her testimony was a powerful testament to the man's character, a story of survival, trust, and an unyielding belief that people could rise above the violence that had defined their lives. Her words stirred the hearts of those present, reminding them that leadership was not about birthright or bloodshed, but about the courage to do what was right, even when it meant standing alone. In a moment that stunned all who witnessed it, the tribe's elders bestowed upon the man the sacred symbols of their chief, a feathered headdress, a staff carved with ancient markings, and a mantle that carried the stories of generations. This was more than a ceremony. It was a profound acceptance, a declaration that he was now one of them. The man who had once been called a fool was now their leader, a bridge between worlds, a beacon of hope in a land scarred by division. This unprecedented act sent ripples beyond the tribe's lands. News traveled across the frontier, igniting discussions in saloons, trading posts, and campfires. Some hailed it as a miracle, a sign that even the Old West could change its ways. Others met it with disbelief or scorn, unwilling to let go of old grudges. Yet, the man's story endured, inspiring others to question the rigid boundaries of loyalty and hatred. It became a living legend, proof that even in the darkest places, light could find a way. As chief, he faced immense challenges, uniting wary warriors, protecting his new people, and navigating the fragile peace between tribes and settlers. But his leadership was rooted in empathy and understanding, qualities rarely seen in a world ruled by fear and violence. His legacy was not built on the barrel of a gun, but on the power of compassion to heal wounds deeper than any bullet. In the heart of the Old West, a fool had become a chief, and through him, a new chapter was written in the history of the frontier. With the mantle of leadership resting on his shoulders, the man understood that his journey was far from over. His tribe looked to him not only for protection, but for a vision that could bridge centuries of pain and rivalry. Each day brought new challenges, hostile neighbors, lingering distrust, and the ever-present threat of violence lurking just beyond the horizon. Yet, through it all, his unwavering commitment to peace became a guiding light. He knew that the true test of a chief was not in wielding power, but in inspiring hope where there was none. The woman who had once been his dying enemy stood by his side as both ally and partner. Together, they embodied the fragile unity of two worlds once torn apart. Their story spread across the land, carried by travelers, traders, and the whispered legends told around flickering campfires. It became a symbol that even the deepest wounds could mend, and that sometimes the bravest act was choosing compassion over conflict. In the heart of the Old West, where survival often meant solitude, their bond was a testament to the strength found in connection. Yet, not all were ready to embrace this new era. Old grudges simmered beneath the surface, threatening to ignite at any moment. Rival tribes watched warily, questioning the loyalty of one who had once been their enemy. Settlers and soldiers, entrenched in their own battles, saw this alliance as a dangerous anomaly, a challenge to the fragile order they sought to maintain. The man's leadership was a constant balancing act, a delicate dance between tradition and transformation, trust and suspicion. One harsh winter night, a test of loyalty arrived when a band of hostile raiders attacked a neighboring settlement, threatening to plunge the region back into chaos. The man rallied his tribe and neighboring allies, uniting forces that had never before stood together. His leadership, forged in empathy and courage, inspired warriors to fight not just for survival, but for a vision of peace. The battle was fierce, but it was also a turning point, proof that even the harshest enemies could become allies when united by common purpose. As dawn broke over the frozen plains, the aftermath of the conflict revealed something remarkable. Scars, yes, but also the first true glimpse of unity in a land long ruled by division. The man's name became synonymous with courage not just in battle, but in the unyielding pursuit of harmony. The Old West was changing, and at its heart was a man once called a fool, now a chief who dared to rewrite the story of his people. The seasons shifted, and with them came new challenges that tested the man's vision for his tribe and the land they now shared. Diplomacy replaced endless skirmishes, and cautious trade agreements blossomed between once warring neighbors. His leadership was marked by patience and resilience, qualities that slowly but surely began to reshape the harsh realities of frontier life. The story of mercy and transformation became a beacon, drawing those weary of conflict toward a future where coexistence was possible. Yet, even as peace took root, whispers of betrayal echoed from distant corners. Some accused him of weakening his people, of abandoning the fierce independence that had defined them. These voices grew louder with each success, fueled by fear of change and the unknown. But the man understood that true strength was not measured by isolation, but by the courage to embrace a new path. He stood firm, knowing that the legacy he forged would outlast any fleeting doubt or dissent. The woman's role evolved as well, from survivor to trusted advisor and symbol of unity. Her journey from a dying enemy to a leader's confidant inspired many, showing that forgiveness could heal wounds deeper than time. Together, they nurtured a community that thrived not on conquest, but on mutual respect and shared dreams. Their partnership was a living testament to the power of empathy in a world too often ruled by fear and hatred. Amidst these transformations, the man never forgot the lonely nights beside that wounded enemy, the fragile moments that had sparked this extraordinary tale. He often reflected on the price he paid, the ridicule, the isolation, the constant battle against old loyalties. Yet, each sacrifice had been worth it for the chance to build something greater than himself. In the unforgiving wilderness of the Old West, his story was a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness could ignite a revolution of the heart. As the sun set behind the rugged hills, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, the man stood tall among his people, no longer a fool, but a chief whose legacy was etched not in bloodshed, but in the healing power of compassion. The West had changed, forever shaped by a story that proved even enemies could become family when courage dared to lead the way. The years that followed were marked by a fragile yet growing peace, as the man's leadership fostered an environment where old wounds slowly began to close. His tribe, once suspicious and wary, now embraced the values of trust and cooperation. Stories of his courage and mercy became legends told from one campfire to the next, inspiring a new generation to dream beyond the boundaries of hatred. But peace, as the Old West had taught him, was never guaranteed. It demanded constant vigilance and unwavering commitment. One day, word came of a new threat, a ruthless band of outlaws terrorizing settlements and tribes alike, threatening to undo all that had been achieved. The man saw this as a test, not only of his leadership, but of the unity he had fought so hard to build. He called upon warriors from every tribe and settlement, urging them to stand together against this common enemy. His call resonated deeply, uniting people who had long been divided by history and mistrust. It was a battle for the future of the West itself. The confrontation was brutal and unforgiving. Outlaws, skilled in deception and violence, struck with ruthless precision. But the united forces, driven by a shared purpose and a vision of peace, fought with fierce determination. The man, standing at the forefront, led not just with strategy, but with the unwavering belief that their strength lay in unity, not division. Every clash of steel and gunfire echoed the fight for a new era, one where compassion could coexist with courage. Victory came at great cost. Many warriors were lost, and scars, both visible and invisible, marked those who survived. Yet, the battle also cemented an unbreakable bond among the tribes and settlers, a pact forged in the fires of struggle and hope. The man's leadership was solidified, no longer questioned, but celebrated. His story was no longer about a single act of mercy, but about the relentless pursuit of peace against all odds. In the quiet aftermath, as the land began to heal, the man reflected on how far he and his people had come. From the moment he chose compassion over hatred to this victory born of unity, his journey embodied the essence of true leadership. In the rugged expanse of the Old West, he had become more than a chief. He was a symbol of hope, proving that even the most broken enemies could come together to build a better future. With the threat of outlaws diminished, the man turned his attention to the future, a future where the lessons of the past would guide the steps of generations to come. He focused on fostering education and cultural exchange between the tribes and settlers, believing that understanding was the key to lasting peace. Schools and councils were established, where stories, traditions, and knowledge were shared openly. This was a new frontier, not of land and conquest, but of minds and hearts coming together. Yet, change was never easy, and not all welcomed this new vision. Some clung to the old ways, resisting the shift toward cooperation and trust. The man faced these challenges with patience and unwavering resolve, knowing that transformation required time and relentless effort. His leadership was not about forcing change, but about inspiring it, planting seeds of hope that would one day bloom into a forest of unity. The woman, now a respected leader in her own right, worked tirelessly alongside him. Their partnership had grown into a powerful force for good, demonstrating that even the deepest divides could be bridged by empathy and shared purpose. Together, they became the heart of a movement that transformed the harsh realities of the West, proving that compassion could be as mighty as any weapon. Stories of their journey traveled far beyond the plains, reaching distant towns and cities. People were captivated by the tale of a man once called a fool who became a chief, not by conquest, but by kindness. His story challenged the violent myths of the Old West and offered a new narrative, one of hope, reconciliation, and the enduring power of the human spirit. As twilight descended on the vast horizon, the man stood once more beneath the endless sky, surrounded by a community united in peace. His legacy was no longer just a story told in whispers. It was a living testament to the courage it takes to heal and the strength found in mercy. In the wild, untamed West, he had forged a path that would inspire hearts for generations to come. The passage of time only deepened the impact of the man's unprecedented leadership. He became a living legend, a symbol not of brute force, but of resilience through compassion. The tribes that once saw each other as enemies now shared stories, dances, and celebrations. Children grew up learning that strength was not about domination, but about protecting and uplifting one another. The man's vision had blossomed into a vibrant community where differences were not just tolerated but celebrated, proving that the harshness of the Old West could be softened by the human heart. However, peace brought its own set of challenges. As settlers pushed further westward, new conflicts arose, disputes over land, resources, and sovereignty tested the fragile alliances. The man faced these trials with a steady hand, relying on diplomacy and the trust he had earned. His leadership was marked by an unwavering commitment to dialogue, seeking solutions that honored both the traditions of his tribe and the realities of a changing world. This delicate balance was his greatest achievement and his most daunting challenge. The woman who had once been his enemy now stood as a pillar of strength, guiding the community alongside him. Their story, woven into the fabric of this new society, inspired many to believe that reconciliation was possible even in the most divided places. Their partnership was a testament to the power of forgiveness and the transformative potential of seeing beyond labels and past grievances. Together, they nurtured a legacy that would endure long after the dust of the frontier had settled. In quiet moments, the man often reflected on the journey that had brought him here, from the whispers of "fool" to the cheers of a grateful people. He knew that his path was carved not only by his own choices, but by the willingness to believe in something greater than himself. It was a story of hope born from hardship, a reminder that even in the wildest corners of the world, kindness could forge a future no one dared imagine. The Old West was forever changed, not by guns or gold, but by a single act of mercy that rippled through generations. The man who had saved a dying enemy had become a chief who saved his people, not through war, but through the unyielding courage to heal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains, the man's story reached its enduring chapter. His legacy was not measured in battles won or enemies defeated, but in hearts transformed and communities united. The tribe he led thrived, a beacon of peace in a land once marred by endless conflict. His leadership showed that true strength lies in compassion, and that the courage to forgive can break the harshest chains of history. The woman, whose life had once hung by a thread, had become a revered leader in her own right. Together, they embodied the triumph of humanity over hatred, a living bridge between two worlds. Their journey inspired countless others to reconsider what it meant to be a foe or a friend, challenging old narratives and creating space for new beginnings. Generations later, their tale would be told around campfires and in classrooms, a timeless lesson carved into the soul of the West. It was a story that transcended time, a story of how one man's compassion changed the course of history, proving that sometimes the greatest hero is the one who dares to show mercy when everyone else turns away. In the end, the man who had once been called a fool was remembered as a chief, not just by the tribe that honored him, but by all who believe in the power of kindness to transform the world. His journey stands as a testament that even in the darkest times, hope can rise and peace can prevail. And so, the dusty trails of the Old West carried the echoes of a story that continues to inspire, that beneath the surface of enemies lie shared dreams, and through courage and compassion, the impossible can become reality. In the vast, rugged expanse of the Old West, where survival often meant choosing sides and drawing lines in the dust, this story stands as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the fiercest enemies can become the strongest allies. Through courage, compassion, and a willingness to break free from the chains of hatred, one man reshaped not only his destiny, but the destiny of entire tribes. His journey teaches us that true leadership is not about conquest or pride, but about the bravery to choose mercy when it seems impossible. As we reflect on this incredible tale, we are challenged to ask ourselves, what walls of prejudice are we willing to tear down? What opportunities for kindness might we be missing because of fear or tradition? This story goes beyond the frontier. It speaks to the core of humanity and the power each of us holds to change the course of our own lives and communities by daring to see others as more than enemies. Remember, the Old West was not only a place of harsh battles and rugged landscapes. It was a place where legends were born from acts of unexpected kindness. The man once called a fool became a chief because he chose to act differently. His legacy reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories come from the smallest acts of compassion, and those acts can ripple through time, inspiring generations. If this story moved you, if it stirred something deep within, I invite you to become part of this journey. Subscribe to the channel to discover more powerful stories that challenge what you think you know and open your heart to the extraordinary. Like this video if you believe in the strength of compassion, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a moment when kindness changed everything for you or someone you know. Together, we keep these stories alive, reminding the world that even in the darkest times, hope can shine through. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes being called a fool is just the first step toward becoming a legend.